Game emulation and piracy are hotly debated topics within the gaming community. For some, they offer a lifeline to relive beloved classics that have become inaccessible over the years, preserving gaming history and providing experiences that would otherwise be lost. For others, they represent an illegal shortcut, allowing people to play games without supporting the hard-working developers and publishers who bring these worlds to life. No matter which side of the debate you fall on, there's no denying that these issues have taken centre stage recently, especially with high-profile legal battles involving companies such as Nintendo cracking down on emulation sites. These cases have forced gamers to reconsider the ethical and legal implications of how we access older games in an industry increasingly focused on digital distribution. In today's video, we're diving deep into the murky waters of emulation and piracy. We'll explore their impact on game collecting, how they shape the future of game preservation, and whether they're a necessary evil or a threat to the industry. So grab your pirate hat and let's set sail on the controversial journey of emulation and piracy. Before we delve deeper into the impact of emulation and piracy, it's essential to clearly define what these terms mean within the gaming world. Emulation in a software context refers to using a program or device to replicate the functionality of another system. In gaming, emulation involves mimicking the hardware of a particular console, allowing games designed for that console to run on a different system, such as a modern PC or smartphone. Essentially, emulators are software tools that imitate the behaviour of classic gaming hardware, enabling us to play games that were originally designed for another console. These emulators rely on game files like ROMs, which are copies of game cartridge data, or ISO images, digital versions of game discs. Through emulation, players can revisit titles for the use of ROMs or ISOs without the need to have the original hardware or software. The use of emulators is perfectly legal, a fact that was firmly established in the US case law through the landmark Sony Computer Entertainment versus Connectors Corporation case in 2000. In this case, the court ruled in favour of Connectors, which had developed an emulator called the Virtual Game Station that emulated the functionality of the PlayStation console on a computer. The ruling determined that the creation of emulators, as long as they do not use copyrighted BIOS code from the original hardware, falls under the protection of the Fair Use Act. Earlier this year, Nintendo made headlines by targeting Yuzu, one of the most popular emulators for the Nintendo Switch. Yuzu had built a substantial following among gamers who wanted to play Nintendo Switch titles on their PCs, often with improved graphics and performance. However, Nintendo issued multiple DMCA takedown notices against Yuzu, arguing that it facilitated mass piracy on a widespread scale. To function, Yuzu required a copyrighted Nintendo Switch BIOS and decryption keys, which users could either extract from a hacked Switch or more commonly download from third-party sources through piracy. Additionally, the Yuzu website offered detailed setup guides and a compatibility chart, showing which games ran smoothly on the emulator. This was all done while Yuzu reportedly earned around $30,000 a month through Patreon. This revenue stream likely fueled Nintendo's legal actions, as it blurred the lines between hobbyist preservation and profit-driven piracy. Piracy, on the other hand, is the unauthorized use, copying, distribution or modification of software that is protected by copyright laws. In the context of gaming, this often involves downloading and playing games without purchasing them. This directly infringes on the intellectual property rights of developers and publishers. Software piracy can occur in various forms, from downloading cracked versions of current-gen titles to sharing ROMs or retro games without permission. Whether intentional or not, anyone engaging in these activities is considered a software pirate in the eyes of the law. In the UK, the Copyright Designs and Patents Act of 1988 make it illegal to copy, distribute or modify software, including video games, without the permission from the copyright holder. Downloading or sharing ROMs and ISOs fall under this law, meaning it is considered piracy. There is a common misconception that it's legal to rip games you physically own and use them with an emulator. However, this isn't always the case from a legal standpoint. In some regions, like the US, there are laws that technically allow for making a backup of software when it is deemed necessary, but some companies such as Nintendo don't consider video games to be made up of just software, and therefore they do not authorize the legal ripping of physical games into digital files such as ISOs. Together, emulation and piracy occupy a legal and ethical grey area. While emulation can serve as a tool for preserving gaming history and providing access to otherwise lost classics, it often intersects with piracy, especially when it involves downloading copyrighted game files. Understanding the difference between these two practices and the legal implications surrounding them is crucial for anyone interested in the impact they have on game collecting and preservation. So, why do gamers turn to emulation and piracy in the first place? For many, it comes down to accessibility. Older games are often difficult to find or simply unplayable on modern hardware. Emulation provides a way to relive these classics without the need for expensive or outdated consoles. Plus, it's a far more convenient way to play these games on modern systems, since older consoles often require legacy video connections that many 4K TVs no longer support without the use of multiple adapters. For a lot of gamers, the hassle of setting up old consoles or finding space for them isn't worth it, making emulation an attractive proposition. The next factor is cost. Most modern games are being released at £70, which is too expensive for a lot of gamers. Retro games have also seen a surge in price since a boom during the pandemic in 2020, with a lot of retro games costing more than their MSRP price when they were initially released. Along with the rising cost of retro hardware to play these physical games, this creates a barrier for a lot of gamers who want to experience these timeless classics they experienced way back in time. Emulation often provides a way to bypass these costs, allowing players to enjoy a vast library of titles without spending a penny. Emulation can often deliver a way better experience than playing on the original hardware, whether it's upscaled graphics, improved frame rates, or quality of life features like save states and fast forwarding. Emulators can dramatically improve or enhance how older games are experienced. These enhancements are especially appealing to gamers who want to revisit classics with a modern twist, something that the original developers may never offer in the form of an official remaster or remake. Emulation, and by extension piracy, play a significant role in game preservation. Many older games have become increasingly difficult to find, with physical copies often locked behind exorbitant price tags on the second-hand market. Worse yet, some titles have been removed from digital stores entirely, which is a major problem for digital-only releases, making them inaccessible through any official means. Additionally, we're seeing entire digital storefronts like the Nintendo 3DS eShop and the Xbox 360 Marketplace being shuttered, forcing players to rely on expensive physical copies if they want to revisit these titles. Emulation helps to preserve these games, ensuring they aren't lost to time as older hardware becomes obsolete and original cartridges and discs deteriorate due to wear and tear. These reasons don't necessarily justify piracy, but they do highlight why it's such a widespread practice among gamers. It's not just about getting something for free, it's about accessibility, preservation, and enhancing the experience in ways that developers either can't or won't offer. As long as there are games that are hard to access, expensive to acquire, trapped on outdated hardware, players will continue to turn to emulation and piracy as a means of enjoying the rich history of video gaming. The rise of emulation and piracy has undoubtedly had a significant impact on game collecting, altering how enthusiasts approach building their collections. One of the most apparent effects is that it removes the need for physical game ownership. For many collectors, part of the joy of collecting is the tangible experience, the thrill of finding a rare game, unboxing a sealed copy, or seeing shelves filled with video games. Emulation, however, makes it possible to access thousands of games without the need of having a single physical copy. This digital convenience can diminish the appeal of hunting for rare games, making physical collections feel less special and even reducing their perceived value. Additionally, the availability of emulators and ROMs means that collectors are no longer limited by the scarcity of physical games. Games that were once considered holy grails due to their rarity can now be easily downloaded, which may impact the market value of these titles. Personally, back in my PC gaming days when I pirated a lot of games, the act of gaming lost its magic. With hundreds of games at my fingertips, I found myself constantly bouncing between titles without committing to any particular game. Since no money was on the line, if I didn't like a game, I'd simply jump onto Pirate Bay and download something else. I rarely spent enough time with a single game to overcome the initial learning curve, which made gaming feel shallow and less rewarding. But it's not just collectors who are affected. Game developers are also taking measures to combat piracy, sometimes at the expense of performance. Many modern games now come with DRM systems such as Denuvo to prevent unauthorized access. While these measures are designed to protect sales, they often come with drawbacks. Players have reported significant performance issues such as longer load times and reduced frame rates, particularly on lower end PCs. This has led to frustration within the gaming community, as paying customers often feel like second-class citizens as they are being punished with a suboptimal experience, while pirates can often bypass these restrictions and DRM protection with cracked versions of the game, which often perform way better than the illegally obtained game. In summary, while emulation and piracy open doors for game preservation and accessibility, they also disrupt the traditional landscape of game collecting. As the line between physical and digital continues to blur, the future of game collecting is being reshaped in ways that can make physical collections more niche and specialised than ever before going forward. To curb the rise of piracy and emulation, game developers and publishers need to address the underlying reasons why gamers turn to these alternatives in the first place. One of the most effective ways is to make games more accessible. For instance, releasing games across multiple platforms, offering regional releases, and ensuring titles are available globally at an affordable rate can significantly reduce the incentive for piracy. When gamers have easy access to the games they want, they're far less likely to seek out illegal copies through piracy. Another approach is to embrace backwards compatibility completely. By allowing players to enjoy their vast collections of game libraries on newer consoles, developers can extend the lifespan of these titles and significantly reduce the need for emulation. Xbox has been a leader in this space, offering support for older titles on its modern hardware. Meanwhile, Sony has begun to catch up by offering select PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 and PSP games through their PlayStation Plus subscription, though it still doesn't match the extensive backwards compatibility offered by Xbox. Additionally, developers could introduce official methods for players to back up their physical games, offering legitimate solutions for dumping ROMs and ISOs from original copies, much like how CDs can be ripped to a computer, would enable gamers to preserve their purchases without resorting to piracy. This could be a win-win solution, promoting game preservation while still supporting the industry. However, this would require changes to current copyright laws, which currently make it illegal to rip games even if you own the original disc or cartridge. Plus, there's still the challenge of preventing misuse, as these backups could easily be shared or sold online. Still, giving players the option to legally archive their games could greatly reduce the temptation to download pirated versions. Ultimately, combating piracy isn't just about stricter laws or more aggressive takedowns, it's about giving gamers better options. If developers can make their games more accessible, affordable and backward compatible, they'll have a much stronger case for why gamers should stick to these official channels rather than turning to emulation and piracy. But that's just one man's opinion about the impact of emulation and piracy on game collecting and preservation. It's a complicated and sometimes controversial topic, but I think it's important to understand all sides of the issue. Now personally, I do believe emulation and even a bit of piracy have their place, especially when it comes to preserving games that become lost to time or locked behind absurd prices on the second-hand market. If it's a matter of getting to experience a piece of gaming history that would otherwise be inaccessible, I think it's okay for personal use. That being said, I'm also a firm believer in supporting developers whenever possible, especially when it comes to modern games. If a game is available on current platforms, I'll always opt to buy it legally, not just to support the hardware that goes into creating these experiences, but to also encourage developers to keep bringing us amazing games in the future. But hey, that's just my take. I'd love to hear what you all think. Do you see emulation and piracy as a necessary means for game preservation, or do you think it crosses the line? Drop your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so that you never miss an upload. And as always, good luck on your game hunts and collecting adventures. Take it easy, YouTube, and I'll catch you in the next one.